those ones are still in hold position. So what we do, we just remove that needle out, and we take the yarn. We need to trim it. Okay, I'll just break the yarn off here. Have to be very careful so that I don't hurt my hand. Okay, you see the loop? Just take the yarn and pass it through the loop, just to fasten it so that your cast off don't. So you see the neck taking shape now. Don't need to stretch it or so. The neck is taking shape. Okay, now we want to work on the other side of the needle bed, and it will tell us that we should pick some stitches here. So let's take our camera closer to the other side of the needle bed. But if you remember, some stitches, this is the main neck. Sometimes they'll tell you to cast off this part of the neck, or take it off with wasting. And I'm not taking off because of the shoulder opening I'm doing. So what I'm going to do next is to pick. There's a loop here, so that there's no hole in my work. You know, when we are knitting this, I need to pick it up. You can now push all needles to C position or B position. Okay, to enable you pick this loop and let it not drop. So there's one loop here. If you see it, if you don't pick the loop, you will have hole in your work. So let's pick the loop and make that place very neat. Okay, see the loop here. You will see it just on top. Now when we are knitting that stitch there, so you just pick the loop and you hang it, or let me say the heel. You can see it here. I think we should go a bit closer. Okay, I think you can see it now. You see this? If you put it like that, let's put it like so that you see it clearly. We are picking this loop here. That's where the knitting started from, when we started shaping the neck. We need to pick it, this one here, so that it smoothens out the neck. We don't want hole in our smoothens out the neck of the garment. We don't want hole in the neck of the garment. So picked it, and if you take a look, you see that it's smooth now. You don't see that wide opening there. Okay, we need to go back to our screen, and then we'll select ready again, which is this, and it will tell us you just go back, select ready, which is the traffic light, and it will tell us what to do. So yeah, it's telling us that we should pick, because we want to knit the other part of the neck. Once you finish the first part, and you select ready, it will take you to the other side of the neck. But if you don't want to complete one side, you can just take your mouse, just click on the other side of the neck, and it will move back there. So now it says we should place carriage at right and pick up left needle 24 to left needle 6. So the pattern wants us to cast off anything before left needle 6. Okay, so we need to cast it out, that part of the middle neck. We need to cast that part off, so that we'll knit with only from left needle 6 to to left needle 24. All right, so let's go back to our needle bed. Okay, now this is left needle 6. Sorry, no, that's not left needle 6. Okay, this is left needle 5. From this needle, this is right needle 5 to left needle 5, and all we need to knit from left needle 6 to left needle 6 to left needle 24. So these are the needles we'll be working on for the other side of the knitwear. This one we need to cast it off and hang the stitch here before we start knitting the second part of the neck. So let me adjust the camera a little so that you see what I'm doing and what I'm working on. Okay, so now my yarn I'm not putting it in my yarn feeder yet. Okay, I can put it in my yarn feeder and just move the yarn feeder a bit closer. Then I'll start casting off. I need to cast off all these needles for the middle neck band. I'll just knit it. Don't worry about this. We'll finish it neatly. The yarn will finish it neatly. But if you are bothered about it, you can just tie it to one of all these stitches first. But I'm not going to do that. We'll finish it neatly. We can secure that later on. So I'll just manually knit it. Just put the yarn. Let's see. Sorry, I didn't know you weren't seeing. Okay. I'll put the yarn in the yarn feeder over the needle and just manually knit it in like this. Then I'll start casting off. Take the stitch of this needle, move it onto the first needle, take both stitches back into the second needle, and then we'll manually knit it. We'll repeat it like so to cast off until we finish casting off up to left needle 5. Okay, this is the 5th needle, and then we just move it. Okay, we'll knit it in, and we just take this. We'll transfer the stitch to the 6th needle and leave it there. We wouldn't need the 6th needle. Why? It's because we don't want hole in our work. You can see. So, okay, so you see the yarn here. When we finish, we'll pick this loop here, this other, we'll pick to this first one to hang before we started casting off for the middle neck. So we'll pick this one when we finish, and wind this yarn through it. We'll pass it through it, and you have your perfect smooth neck. All right, so but now let's focus on these needles we are to knit. We need to knit the other side of the neck. That's the other side of the neck, or the other side of the garment. The neck side of the garment, other side of the neck. Let's take a look at our garment first. You can see our garment coming out. So the little girl's dress, you can see it, and you can see the beautiful gathered bottom, the stripes, and this is the body. So you can see the armhole here, and here's the shoulder. Don't worry, let's just keep on knitting. I just want you to see that we're getting close. Okay, then let me check the screen. If you take a look at the screen, it tells us what to do for us to knit the other side of the neck. So now I will just select OK. Okay, it's found the magnetic link, and we are going to start knitting. So it says I should pick up 19, and if you count my needles now on the needle bed, you know that we have 19. Let me count it. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. Okay, we have 19. And now I'm going to knit. With this one now, you can now set your carriage back to, sorry, I need to tell you that your carriage, if you take a look at your carriage, you know we set it to hold position. You can now set it to knit all needles in hold position back to B position. That's your roster lever should go back to 2. Because you know your needles are still in hold position. They should go back to 2. So that you can knit. Okay, so I'll just... Okay. Screen, it says we should, if you look at the screen, it says we should decrease 3 at right. Is it 3? Okay. It says we should decrease 3 at right. So, and you know that if you take a look at the carriage bed, you can see where if you take a look at the carriage, you can see that the carriage is still at the left. You can see the carriage there. This carriage, you can see it here. And I can't decrease 3 because it's supposed to be here. Because here is now my new right, and here is that's the left, and here is the right, because of we are working on the side of the knitwear. On the left side of the knitwear. So I'll make sure that when the carriage is here, I'll do that decrease. I don't need to do the decrease immediately there. Because I'm going to decrease more needles or decrease more stitches. Means and I don't want to do it where the yarn is. I don't want to do that fashion decrease there. I want to do the decrease where I want to do it where the yarn is, where the tail of the yarn is, because it's the neck, and I don't want it to be too tight. So I'll just knit 1 row back, and we'll do that decrease. Okay. Then we'll do the decrease. And sorry, I forgot to tell you, we need to change our row counter. You're supposed to change your row counter before when you want to knit the other side. Automatically, the interactive knitting will change. If you look at the screen, it changes back to 37 or 30. When you go to knit the other side of the garment, it changes to that row, but you need to change your row counter so that you keep a track of it. In case you make a mistake, perhaps your count the magnetic link didn't read properly, and you've already knitted a row. You want to know the actual row that you knitted. All right, so we're supposed to change it. Sorry about that. Okay, now we're on 36. Okay, so now let me decrease that three stitches. Okay, as usual, my usual decrease. With this technique, you can take any sweater, add your gather to it, and put buttonhole shoulder opening at the side. Okay, so when I decrease 3, where will my needle be now? To be on 9. Okay, so I'll just take both stitches together and put them. So I'm not knitting it because that's the last stitch I'm to decrease. I'll just put it and I'll knit across because I don't want hole in my work, so I'm not knitting. I won't manually knit that one. And we need to decrease 2 again. So the same goes, the same decrease I've been doing. You want them to match properly, so do the same decrease. And because this is the second one I'm decreasing, I'll just transfer the stitches and leave it in the needle. I won't knit it as usual so that I won't have hole in my work. The carriage will do the knitting because that's the last stitch that I need to do. Okay, so I'm knitting it. So you can see the screen. Let's take a look at the screen as I knit, and you will hear it speaking to me because I activated the voice icon. Now it wants me to decrease 1, but since it's just 1 stitch at right, I want to come back to do it because when I was decreasing this other side, the right side, I made sure that when the carriage was, that's the tail of the yarn, when it comes to this other side, to the side I need to do my decrease, that's when I did the decrease. That's because it's the neck. Since it's 1, I could just do the transfer, but I'm not going to do that because I want it to match the same decrease I did for this other part. So I'm going to knit back and do the decrease. This one, to decrease 1, it's like decreasing the other same. Need to decrease 1 stitch. So I'll wind the yarn around the needle, manually knit it, then take the stitch of the second needle, move it onto the first needle. We have 2 stitches in the first needle. We take both stitches now and move it back into the second needle and remove the first out of work position, but we don't knit because that's the last needle, that's the last stitch we are decreasing. You don't want hole in your work, so you don't knit it. The carriage will do the knitting for you. You don't need to manually knit it. Sorry. So we need to knit 3 times 1 before any decrease. And it says I need to decrease 1. So when I come back here, I'll do the 1. Let me decrease, okay? So to decrease the 1, I'll push the needle out, wind the yarn around the last needle, move it in, then take the stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first needle, my usual decrease method. I'll now move both stitches to the second needle, which will now become the first, and remove that empty needle out of work position. I need to knit, and I need to knit 3 times more. So it tells me on screen. Sorry, you're not seeing it. Cast off. So as it says, I should cast off. So we finished. You can see it. Let's take a look at the screen. Row 50, cast off. Your left needle on 24 and your left needle 24 to left needle 13. And you can see the screen. If you look at let's take a look at the neck. You see that we've gotten to the end of the left side. And if you look at this part of the screen, this is where we are. We've just finished. So we want to cast off now. So I'll cast off as usual. And the next thing, get your sewing machine ready, because we'll be stitching it and then knitting the neckband, then the buttonhole, and finishing the knitwear. So you can see I've finished casting off. Just need to break the yarn off. You can see the gather gown now. If you take a look, you can see it here. We have the round. You can see the round neck, and here's the gather, looking lovely. We've not finished yet. We still need to knit the neckband, the buttonhole, and we need to join the shoulders. After that, we're done this yarn. But if you use just one color, that's up to you. You can use one color. I have some that I use just one single color, but I did a stitch pattern the side, and I have some I didn't even do stitch pattern. I use the same color all through. Okay, I'll show you those ones later on when we finish. And I use the one I did also with stitch pattern. I used tuck lace. Yes, I used tuck lace, and one I just did stocking it all through. Okay, then this is the sleeve. This is the sleeve. Oh, 2. These are the sleeves. Okay. Alright, okay, we have the sleeves. I know I knitted this off, but the same shaping method. You decrease, tells you what to decrease. I'll put the stitch pattern on my blog or website. Then you can go there and download it. So there's the back. You know the back is straight neck. Yes, that's how we designed it. Straight neck. So what we need to do next is I want to smoothen this part out. So I'm going to secure this yarn into into one of all these loops here. So you can use your tapestry needle, but I'm just using a latch tool. I'm just going to secure it. You can just weave it in, and if you see it starts smoothing it, you can weave in and out. So I'll put it at the back. We don't need it in front. So I can take it to the back by just taking it through another loop from front to back, so that the yarn will be at the back. And when we finish, we'll wind the yarn through into the neckband. Then here will be as smooth as, it will be very smooth. You won't see, you might notice a little, but don't worry, it will be neat. Okay, so what we need to do next is to get our sewing pin, because we need to go to the sewing machine. Okay, right side, that's knit side to knit side, pull side out. You know, the right hand side, which is this side, when the pull side was facing us, and this side was those right neck side has a lower row than the left neck side. So we don't need to, you don't need to join the right neck side, because that's what has a lower row, and that's where we're going to put our buttonhole. With this, you can now take any sweater, just to reduce the numbers of rows on one side, and you can make a buttonhole. Okay, let's pin. Just on one side, you are going to stitch just one side, because we are putting buttonhole the other side. Okay, when we stitch, after stitching this neck, after stitching this shoulder, we'll spread it out. We'll pick all the stitches from the back straight round neck, and leave this part out, because this is where the buttonhole is going to be. So we'll pick from here round the neck and through the back, and the other right shoulder of the back right shoulder, which we didn't stitch. We're going to pick it, because we're going to stitch buttons on it. Okay, so let's go to the sewing machine and stitch just the neck. And stitch just the shoulder. You can see that's the only part I pinned. It's still very much opened. Let's spread it a little so that you see it. Let me not assume you understand. Let me just be thorough. Okay. So okay, this is the front. There's a left shoulder. This is the left shoulder of the front, left shoulder of the back, right shoulder of the back, right shoulder of the front. Not stitched, because we're going to put buttonhole in front and buttons at the back. But we'll first of all knit a neck band first before we do that. So now we're going to stitch just this part, this shoulder, and then we'll go back to our knitting machine and pick for the neck band. A sewing machine. Okay, I'm going to use I'm going to set my stitch length to about 1.5 or so. I don't want it to be too big or too small. Okay. Oh, sorry. This one here is the stitch length. Okay, I'm going to set it. That's the tension. I think that's the lower tension. Just setting it in between. Just an average stitch. Standard, I should say. Sorry. Then I'm using back stitch. If you take a look, you see stitch number 5. That's what I'll be using, stitch number 5. You can use stitch number 5 or stitch number 6. So I'll be using stitch number 5, and that's why you see the die is here set on 5 there. And also at the top here, you see the triangle. This is just a standard stitch, standard setting for this machine. So you can use the standard setting for your sewing machine. I've already threaded you can see my thread, and the bobbin, it's in. You can see the bobbin is already in. You can see it. There's the bobbin. It's there. Normal sewing procedure. and then we're going to start sewing. Please don't make your hem bulky. So just place it. It's flat now. Many times I pin straight like this. This prevents the rolling. It enables you to take control of the rolled edges. You notice that my pins are not going sideways. Instead, they are going vertical. They are not going horizontal. They're going vertical. This enables me to make sure that it lines properly and takes care of the rolled edges. Okay, so normal sewing procedure. And if you notice, you can see that I'm not using large seam allowance. No, I'm not using large seam allowance. We don't want the seam to be bulky. And I'm just moving backward to set my stitch. And that is it. So we'll meet at the sewing. Okay, let's take a look at it and see what we've sewn. You can see now that it's been stitched neatly. Okay, you can see now that it has been stitched neatly. Take a look, it has been stitched neatly. And you can see the seam allowance is not bulky. You can see it's little. It's not bulky. Alright, okay, so next we are going to the knitting machine and we are going to pick the hem. I want to take a proper look at it. So now we are going to the knitting machine. We are going to pick the neck band. We're going to pick it round. We'll start from one end to the other end, except this shoulder. We'll leave this shoulder for the buttonhole to work the buttonhole on. We'll leave the shoulder to work the buttonhole on. We'll pick round, the round neck, and the full back, the remaining part of the back and the shoulder of the back. Okay, we need to start picking the stitches for our neck band. For the neck band, to pick the stitches or to hang your stitches, bend your knitwear. You see, just bend it towards you and you see this beautiful edge, like crochet edge. Then you pick it, make sure you pick this full stitch. You can see it's as if it has, I don't know if we can get this one. It's as if the full stitch, you pick the full stitch. Okay, let's use this one. You can see it here. We'll pick the others. So you see the full stitch. It's like a chain stitch. You just pick it up. That's why we did that cast off edge. This gives us a beautiful edge for us to be able to pick and rehang our stitch to knit our neckband. So to knit, normally I make sure the wrong side faces me, but today I'm going to do the other part. The right side will be facing me. The right side will be facing me because I want to use the seam. You can see this beautiful edge. So we're going to pick the stitches, sorry. Turn it and you can see, pick the full stitch. You pick the full stitch. It's as if you have two stitches on your needle, on your transfer tool also. We are picking a full stitch because if you pick one, the other one will be left. So we need to pick the full stitch, right? And I'm using the right side to face me in this particular design. You can make the wrong side face you. I've done that. I just want to do a different technique. So it's up to you. So I'm going to pick it, the first one here, and just hang it. And I'll continue. When we get to the front neck, for the front, we can decide how many needles. We have to check our pattern to know how many needles we need to pick. Sorry, how many stitches we need to pick for the I hope you can see it as we're picking them. And you just repeat them across the bed. When I finish picking them, I'll put on the camera so that we can knit. But before then, as you're picking them, make sure you need a ravel cord, different color of ravel cord. Why we need a ravel cord is because we are going to knit, and we need to pick the loop to form the neck band. You want to know the row where the loop is that you are supposed to pick to form the neck band. So we'll need a ravel cord. I'll use a different color so that you see them. But if you are using since you are using a different color of yarn, we don't really need a ravel cord for that. Why? It's because the color of the color of yarn we are using is for the neckband is different. We are using the sea green color of yarn. That's this color of yarn. We are using it, and you know the bodice is this aqua. The bodice is aqua and the sea green. We are using the sea green yarn for the welt, so we don't need a ravel cord. But if you are using the same color of yarn for the for the neckband, then you will need a ravel cord to know the row you are to pick. When we are knitting the neckband, when we are knitting the buttonhole, you will understand that, because after we finish knitting this neckband, I want to knit the buttonhole. If we have any color, so let's take a look. I've picked a few, and I'll do the others off camera. Just getting to the shoulders now. Do the others off camera and show you what we've done so far. Now I'll finish hanging the neck from the front to the full back of the neck, except the front right shoulder. The joining for the front right shoulder, I didn't hang that one. So we're going to knit now 6 rows. We also need 6 rows for the neckband. But because we're going to fold this like mock rib, but instead it's not one by one. This one you're picking every stitch. You know, we brought all needles. Let's go closer so that you see that we brought forth all needles to. We have stitches on every needle, not every other needle. You can see that we have stitches on all needles. So what we're going to do now is to, when we need to pick the loops to form the neck bands, then we'll now be able to do then we'll do the buttonhole. So because you're going to form loop, we are going to pick the loop, and we're supposed to need 6 rows of neck for the neck band. We have to need 12, so that when you pick the loop, to pick loop or to form a mock rib, something like a mock rib or a mock rib, you have one side, you have the numbers, and you multiply it by 2 so that it forms it. Okay, so but before then, in original pattern drafting, you don't have it do not tell you the neck band to knit. So what I did, because I designed it in standard garment styling first, then we took it to original pattern drafting and added the gather and the wealth of the gather. I'll go back to standard garment styling. Just click on it. Here it tells me that there's a warning that the cloth has been altered, the garment has been altered, and if I go there, changes will be lost. I'll just say okay, but when I get there, I'm not going to save, because I don't want my changes to really be lost. So I'll just click OK, and here's and if you look, this is what we designed in standard garment styling. You can see now that we have the neck band there. All I'll do is just to click print preview, the print icon. I don't know if you can see that one. Okay, I just click the print preview icon. The window pops up. I'll click the front. It's only the front I need. You can click any one you want to, but I'll click the front because we designed the front and back here. So I'll click the text summary. You click text summary because it's going to be in text summary instead. It's not going to be in garment text or garment outline. It's going to be in text summary. That's where the rows for your welt and the stitches to pick for the number of stitches to pick for your neck band. So you click next and then we'll go to preview. Here it is. We'll scroll down a little. Down. It says the horizontal neck band. It tells us what to pick, and this in standard garment styling. We designed it in standard garment styling. So it tells us we need 6 rows of welt. I've already picked the numbers of. I've already picked the stitches for my neck. Sorry, for the neck of the garment, and 6 rows of welt. But because it's going to be like a mock rib we're going to need 12 rows. So let's go back to our knitting machine and start knitting the neckband. If I were using the same color of yarn for this neckband now, when I put the yarn in the carriage, I'll just add so with our stitch die on 9, we're going to knit 1 row from right to left. Then we'll change the stitch die back to a lower number, like 7.5. So that one is quite tight. So now we change our stitch die to 7.5 and we'll knit 11 rows. So we have 12 rows. Now we need to pick the loops to form. We need to pick our loops. Just take a closer look. And our row counter shows 12. Let's take a loop at our row counter. Before the row counter, let's take a look at the screen. It said we should need 6 rows. But because we are folding, picking the loops to form like a mock rib, we need to knit 12 rows, and that's why our row counter shows 12. Okay, so now we need to pick our loops. We just need to take a closer look at the loops. I will pick them and hang them. And you must make sure you pick them rightly because you don't want your loops twisted. So we'll start from the first one. Not to make mistake, I just want to knit this one properly. And then we'll pick the loops. You hang it on the first needle. You do same. You can just bend it and you see the loop where to pick here. If you bend your work, you just see where you need to pick. If you use the ravel cord, you will see the ravel cord and your yarn together, so you know that this is where you need to pick. This is the yarn, the row you need to pick, or the loop you need to pick. So I'll just pick a few and I'll do the other off camera. You know, it's quite much and we need to save time. So you can see that I've picked some loops here. You just continue in this manner until you've picked all the loops. So let me do the other one off camera. If you can, as you can see, we have a lot to pick. So let me pick it off camera, then I'll put on the camera after I'll finish picking the last loop. You can see I've finished picking them. You can see how neat it is. So what I'm going to do now is to focus the camera on top the needle bed so that you see the stitches. If you take a look, you will notice that we have 2 stitches in each needle. You can see it 1, 2. This is the normal one and this is the loop we picked. The one in front is the loop we picked. The one I'm touching now. Those are the loops we picked. So we're going to knit 1 row from right to left, and then after that we'll cast off. My stitch dial is still on 7.5. You know, okay, so we need to cast off. To cast off, it's still the same method that I do use. I've not changed it. Push 1 needle out, Don't know if you can see it clearly. Please just bear with me while I adjust the camera. Okay. We push one needle out, wind the yarn around the first needle. That's push the first needle out, wind the yarn around the first needle. If we can. Wow, we need to focus clearly, properly. If we can get it. Push one needle out, wind the yarn around the first needle, push the first needle out, sorry, wind the yarn around the first needle and manually knit it in. Then you take the stitch from the second needle, transfer it onto the first needle, take both stitches from the first needle and put them back onto the second needle, push the first needle out of work position and then manually knit the one with both stitches in. That's the second needle, which now becomes our new first needle. Manually knit that one in. We've decreased one. I'll just repeat it again. I'll do the next one. Sorry. We take the second stitch in. We move it onto the first needle. Take both stitches from the first needle. Move them back into the second needle. Take the first needle out of work position, wind the yarn around the hook of the new needle now, which has two stitches, sorry, which has two stitches, and you manually knit that one in. So we do another one. Just hope you are seeing this clearly. Take the stitch from the second needle, move it onto the first needle. Take both stitches from the first needle, move them back into the second needle. Remove the first needle out of work position, then move it to A position or non-working position because you are decreasing. And then you manually wind the yarn around the hook of the needle with two stitches and you manually knit that one in. If you can see, you see that we are decreasing and we have no needles here. You can't see any needles here. Means we've decreased those needles here. So we'll keep on decreasing till we remove, until we've removed, we finish decreasing. Sorry, we keep on casting off. Your needle decreases as you cast off. So we keep on casting off until we finally remove that. We finish remove. Keep on casting off until we're finished removing all stitches from the needle bed. We've done this method before on the LK150 knitting machine, where we knitted the 0 to 3 months old sweater or jumper with a buttonhole shoulder neck or shoulder opening. So just continue. So if you can see it clearly, please just check that video. Still the same technique. Just this one, the needles are so small and trying to get the camera closer to be able to show you properly, and I hope you're seeing it. Okay, let's see what we've done so far, and I'll cast off the others. Okay. Alright, so you can see I've casted this off, and it's going to lay flat or lie flat. Then by the time we finish, you just put transfer to in and close the stitches with it, and you see it will lie flat. You see the seam is out. The one I did for the LK the one I did for 0 to 3 months old sweater, the seam was inside, like so. The seam was inside the seam, but now I'm making the seam out. It's not a mistake. I just want to tell you that you can change it. You can do it. You can make your seam out, and it will act as a nice decorative edge. So if you want to cast off, if you want to change the yarn for casting off, you can use another color of yarn to just highlight this part, the seam, and it will be nice. It will be good. It's your knitwear. Design it the way you want to. You can alter it so that it don't look exactly like other people's own. But just make something outstanding and beautiful. Something you are pleased with. Okay, so I've done this, and I need to do the others. You can see how long it is. Now we know how to cast off. So I'll do this off camera, and next we'll do the buttonhole on this side. After knitting the buttonhole, after I finish casting off, I'll put on the camera. Then we knit the buttonhole. After we knit the buttonhole, we have to sew our knitwear, fix our buttons, darning, loose yarn. Be good. That's it. Then if you have label, get ready, you stitch it on, and can package it for whoever you want to make it for, or whoever you're making the knitwear for. So now you can see I've already finished knitting the neckband, but we need to knit the buttonhole, and the buttonhole will be here. Let's take a closer look at it, please. Alright, we can see the neck. You can see the neckband. You can see the seam. If you desire, you can instead of making your seam face out, you can make your seam be inside like that. This side becomes the front. Sorry, this side becomes the front, and this stockinette part, that's the paw side, can become the front. It's up to you. You can do it as you desire. It's your knitwear. Also, if you don't want to knit a sleeve, you can just make this sleeveless, and you can see the armhole. You can just make this sleeveless, pick the armhole, just pick it round, hang it on your knitting machine, pick it, and you can knit a band for it instead of knitting a sleeve. It's optional. It's your knitwear. Can make that, can vary it, especially then if you make that, you can if you give it to the little girl, she can put on the vest. You know, this for a 0 to 3 months old baby. She can still put on a vest, even if you make it sleeveless. You don't want to knit sleeve, you don't like the constant shaping or so, or you don't just like, you don't want sleeve, or you're not used to knitting the sleeves or something like that, it's all right. You can knit it, pick the edge to form your arm, to form the band for the arm. The child can still wear it. She would need to just put on a vest, or if it's winter, she can need is it a heat thermal wear, sorry. If it's winter, she can wear she can use the thermal wear, and if it's summer, she can use it sleeveless like that, or with a just with a light cotton vest. Sorry, cotton vest. All right, so let's go to the knitting machine now, and we need to knit our buttonhole here. It will still extend a little to the neckband, and that means I'll need a ravel cord. Why? Because my neckband and the neckband and the yarn I'm using for the yarn I used for this neckband is sea green, and the one I'll use for the buttonhole will be the same. And I want to know which loop to pick when I get here, so I'll need my ravel cord. All right, see you at the knitting machine. So I'll just hang. Okay, the right side need to face me because of the, I'll use the right side facing me because remember the seam is going to be outside. But if you want your seam inside, you need to use the wrong side facing me, the paw side. But now I want my seam out like this, like how I knitted the neckband. So I need the right side facing me. I'll just pick. Okay, we need to pick the stitches for the neckband, for the buttonhole. And when you want to pick, please pick the, you know, it's not a tube here. If you can see the tube, you can see this hole here. You need to pick the first one. You need to pick both stitches. You need to close the tube. So we'll have to pick the front one and the back one. You can see me just putting my transfer tool through it. Both of them, you have to pick both of them. Don't know if you can see it. We need to just pick them together and hang. Some people just insert the 3 needle tool like so, and they never did. They pick much about 3 at a go, and then they hang it. But sometimes I forget because I'm demonstrating, and I know you're watching me, and so let's do that. You know, we've been picking since. It's faster, right? See? Oh, it's true. Instead of picking one at a time. Okay. I need to pick this last one here. Then I'll count my needles. If you don't know what numbers of needles or stitches to pick, if you can remember the numbers of stitches you casted off, then you have to push that number of needle out. The number of stitches you casted off for the shoulders, you have to push out that numbers of needles. Then when you place your welt, you know how many the numbers of needles you need to pick for the neckband, this neckband here, so it complements it. So now I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. That's quite much, but it's not all right. I'm just trying to calculate for my I'm just trying to calculate for my buttonhole. If I'm doing it over 3 buttons or 4 buttons, how is it evenly spaced? Yeah, it's fine. Okay. So with my yarn in my I want to take my carriage to the right hand side. It's not compulsory, you must start off from the right, it's just me. So my stitch dial is set to 9, just because of this row. Then we'll take it back to 7.5. Okay, and we'll do a I'm holding the yarn and the ravel cord, you know, because of this color, you know, the neckband, if you notice, the neckband has the same color of the yarn I'm going to use to knit this buttonhole. So I need to know the place where there's a loop to pick. So my yarn and ravel cord in the yarn feeder, my stitch die set to 9. I don't know if we can take a look at that. I know the experts, the experienced ones are saying, oh, just go on, but let's consider the beginners. Okay, you can see both of them in the yarn feeder, and my stitch die set to 9. So with our yarn feeder in the carriage, yarn feeder and ravel cord in the carriage, we need 1 row from right to left. Our stitch dial our stitch dial is on 9, sorry. Stitch dial is on 9. Okay. And then we change, now we've knitted 1 row from right to left. Our row counter shows 1. So what next we need to do is to change our stitch die to 7.5. Since we are knitting 12 rows, we need to knit 12 rows, sorry. But we have to, in between, we need to make our buttonholes. So what's going to happen is that we need half of the first side is 6 and the second side is 6, you know, because we're folding it to make a very thick neck band like a mock rib. So we need to knit the first half of the front, which is, you know, the front is 6, the back side is 6 of the neck band, because we are folding it. And if we need to put our buttonhole in between the first part of the front, means that we have to divide 6 by 2. Means after knitting, when we are on the 3rd row, we need to make our buttonhole. I hope you understand that. So I just knit, there's the 2nd row now, and then the 3rd row. Row counter shows 3. So we need to push our needles out. We need to push our needles out now to make our buttonhole. This is the first part of the front. First half, of the front. Then we need the second half of the front, which will complete 6 rows, but now we need to make our buttonhole. So I'll just push, I want to make it over 4 needles. You can take your buttons, place them. You can take your buttons and place them on your stitch on the. So I want to make your buttonhole. First of all, you need to place your button on. You need to place your button on your knitwear and count the numbers of stitches that the button is over. Let's see. I think it's about 4. Yes, it's 4. And since you are using a smaller stitch, a smaller stitch die, it's still alright to use 4. So just place it. Just place your button and count. Okay, let's use it. Just place it and count. You can see it's over 4. It's on 4. So since you are using a smaller stitch die, it's still alright to use 4. You don't want it to be too loose. The needles we are working on, we need to remove some for the seam and make sure we space our buttonhole evenly. So I'll move 3 needles out. I'm just moving them to upper working or B position. Then I need 4 needles for my buttonhole. If I take this first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll put this other 4 in upper working position and leave this 4 and 1 out. We need to pick one. As we are knitting, I'll tell you, you need to pick one extra needle, because there's going to be a loop and we need to secure that loop, because we don't want the buttonhole to loose and our work unravel, or the full knit neckband loose, because you need to secure one loop in the yarn that forms the buttonhole. So now we're going to work on these 4 needles first. If you have short ravel cord, so I don't have a short one, I have just one long one. So for those of us that have long one, good. For those of you that have short ones, it's alright, you can manually knit them with the short ones. So let's knit the ravel. Use the ravel cord to knit this. Knit this 4 needles, these 8 needles here, 4 and 4 here, for our buttonhole, because this is what we are going to work on to form our buttonhole. So with my ravel cord, you can see the ravel cord. I'm going to manually knit over those 4 needles. You knit it manually. We'll take a look at it when I finish. If you can't see it clearly, please make reference to the previous video, 0 to 3 months old sweater. I'm sure you'll be able to see that clearly. Okay. So let's take a look at, you can see that I manually knitted them in. You can see the ravel cord here. So I've knitted it with the ravel cord. I've knitted these needles with the ravel cord, the 4 needles. They are not in A position, please. We need to bring them out. I just wanted to make the loop a bit longer. Okay, we need to bring them back to B position, working position. So you've seen the loop. Now we're going to knit 3 more rows so that the front can be completed. The front, the 6 rows for the front can be completed. So we are going to need 3 more rows so that the 6 rows for the front can be completed. Okay, so now we have the 6 rows, and if we take a look, let's take a look again. A lot of us struggle with buttonholes, zips. So if we take a look, you can see the loop, this loop. You can see that we have some stitches here below. We have some stitches, this space is here, the ravel cord. We have some stitches here and we have some stitches here. So this is where our buttonhole will form, and all these loops need to be hung properly. So this is the first part. You can see it on this other buttonhole here. Okay. This way our seam is going to be to sew this part to the arm of our, or the sleeves of our knitwear, and there's the inner part of the neck. Okay, so we've knitted the first part, 3 before the buttonhole and 3 after the buttonhole. But we can't leave our work like this, because you know the neckband is thick. We've folded it. You can see how neat it is, folded thick, not flimsy. So we need to knit another 3. We need to form this thing, this buttonhole again in the reverse part or reverse side. So we need to knit 3 rows again. Then we pick the loop for our buttonhole and we knit 3 and close up. So we need 3. We are knitting the back part of it. 2, 3. Okay. So now we have 3, 6 and remaining 3 to complete. 3, 6 means that's 3 rows before the buttonholes, then 6, and now we need 3 again to complete, so that the 12 rows we knitted for the neckband can be completed. So we're on those. So we need to pick now for our buttonhole. And if you notice, you can see the loop. Let's start with the first one. I think this is a bit wide enough. So we're going to start with the first one. We need to adjust this camera to pick it clearly for us. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do now, we have this loop here. You know, the ravel cord here is not hanging on anything here. So we need to pick this loop. The first thing we're going to do is to bring the exact needle we brought out for the knitwear. For the buttonhole, we need to bring that same exact needle, those needles out. So if I brought 3, 4, okay, you can see I've pushed the same exact needles, sorry, there are more than one. Push the same exact needles out. Let's just take a look, please. Okay, exact needles out. You don't want your needles to the buttonhole to be twisted, so we brought the same needles we brought. Bring the exact needles you need for you used for the button to knit the ravel cord for the buttonhole. Bring that same exact needle, those same exact needles, sorry, out. That's a perfect one if you can get this angle. All right. Okay, so I've picked the first loop. Let me do it again. I've picked this first loop. You can see the first loop. The one above, not below. Okay? Because we need to close this part first, then we need to knit the other part and close it. Alright, so pick it, hang it on the first one, first needle. That's the first needle for my buttonhole, not the first needle on the needle bed. No. So now I'm working on 4 needles first. So the first of that needle, and I'll manually knit it. So I'll take this stitch and transfer it onto the second needle. Okay, and we have 2 stitches on the needle bed. Then I'll pick this loop for the second needle. This is the loop for the second needle. If you put out, you can see it properly. Okay, this is the loop. So I'm going to pick this loop. Now the second needle has 2 stitches now, or you have 2 stitches. So okay, I'm going to pick this one and the loop, and we'll place it in the hook and use it to knit those 2 stitches of the second needle. You can see, we'll take the stitch of the second needle and move it. You know, we've knitted it, so it's now remaining only 1 stitch now. When you knit it, it remains 1. You now move it onto the third needle. The third needle has 2 stitches, and so we'll take this loop for the third needle. You can see the loop. Okay, you can see the loop for the third needle. We'll put it in the hook of the third needle and use it to knit those 2 stitches. Okay, and we'll take the stitch of this third needle. There's remaining 1 now. We'll move it onto the 4th needle. However, I forgot to tell you, we need to move push 1 extra needle out. So instead of working on 4 needles, you're working on 5. I didn't want to confuse, that's why I waited till the last. But I forgot. I need to bring it out now before we finish the buttonhole. So I've brought it out. Let's leave it first out there. So this is the 4th needle. We need to pick the loop of this 4th needle, which is this. We need to put it in the hook of the 4th needle. We need to put it in the hook of this 4th needle and use it to manually knit the 2 stitches. You need to manually knit the 2 stitches, and we need those 4 needles empty. So we have 3 empty needles now, but there's the 4th one, we still need it empty. So we need to take the stitch of this 1st needle and transfer it to the new needle we brought out. Okay, you can't just leave it like that. There's another loop here. If you notice, you can see that this raffle cord is hanging. This raffle cord here is hanging on 1 loop here. You need to pick that loop. that loop has no grip, or should I say foundation, so it's going to lose, unravel. It's going to lose, it's going to unravel. So you need to pick it and place it inside the hook of this fifth needle with 2 stitches. You know, you transfer the stitch of the 4th needle to this new 5th needle. You need to bring 1 extra needle to your left. When you knit it, manually knit it, you leave it. You don't transfer the stitch of that needle. Sorry, I dropped some stitches. Okay, let's do it for the other side. The second, you can see the buttonhole forming now. Okay, you don't need to remove your yarn, your raffle cord now, because you've not picked this one. It will drop. So now let's take a look at the second buttonhole and work on it. I hope you see it and understand it clearly. So now you can see the buttonhole. You see the buttonhole here. We just finished only one part. We need to still pick this loop here and knit, but we need to knit this button. We need to make this other loop first for this side of the second buttonhole. So we push our normal 4 needles to, we push it to, can push it to hold position or non-upper working position. The 4 needles that we used to knit this, knit the ravel cord with previously to make this opening, is that same needle, those same needles, what you need to push out. So we need, then you count your loop. You can see we have 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and we have an extra one forming here. So we'll first of all pick the first one and hang it. Okay, before I pick the first one, you know, push 4 needles out, and we need to push an extra one out because of the extra loop. So we have 5 needles instead of 4. Your 4 original needles and 1 extra needle to the left. So we pick the first loop, hang it on this needle, the first needle, and we use that loop to manually knit the stitch in. And we transfer the stitch of the first needle onto the second needle. Then we pick the loop of the second. Okay, this is the loop of the second. We pick it, and then we hang it in the hook of the second needle. And then we manually use that stitch with the loop we picked to manually knit those 2 stitches in. Then we take the stitch, which is now 1, since we've knitted it. We'll take the stitch and transfer it onto the 3rd needle. The 3rd needle now have 2 stitches. The 3rd needle now have 2 stitches. So we need to pick its loop and knit it, because we need that needle empty. Okay. That's the loop. It's coordinating loop. So I'm just trying to, okay, hang it in the hook and use it to knit those 2 stitches in. Then we take the stitch of that needle, we transfer it onto the 4th needle, or to the 4th needle, And we look for the loop for the 4th needle, the coordinating loop, hang it in the hook of the 4th needle and use it to knit. You can see now that the buttonhole is forming. The first part, the upper part of the buttonhole is forming. So you take it, the stitch of the 4th needle, take it, transfer it onto the 5th needle. The extra needle we pushed out, and now we need to look for that loop so that we don't pick the wrong loop, because if you pick the wrong loop, your buttonhole will still unravel, your band will unravel. So we pick it, look for the loop. Okay, here we go. This is the loop. You can see that the raffle cord is hanging on the loop. I know the lighting is not helping it's not helping too much because it's reflecting. So this is the loop. You can see the raffle cord hanging on it. So this is the loop. We'll pick it, put it in the hook of the 5th needle, the extra needle, and use it to manually knit the stitch in. Okay, we've lost the roll here. This one they need. I'm just trying to arrange those two back because they're very improperly knitted. Okay. So we still have our loop here, and we have four empty needles for the first buttonhole. You can see the 4 empty needles, and we have 4 empty needles for the second buttonhole. So what we need to do, let's take a look at the needle bed. You can see the 4 empty needles. These are the 4 empty needles. So I'm just pushing them to A position so that you see that they are really empty. Okay, we need to bring them back to working position. And what we're going to do next, or what I am going to do next, is that I'll start picking the bottom loops. The first buttonhole loop, the first bottom loop, I'll pick it and hang it on this, on the 1st needle. The second bottom loop, I'll pick it and hang it on the hook of the 2nd needle. The 3rd bottom loop, I'll pick it and hang it on the hook of the 3rd needle. And the 4th bottom loop, I'll pick it and hang it in the hook of the 4th needle. Alright, hope I'm not dropping any stitch. Okay, alright, I'll repeat same for this side. You can see the loops. Pick the first loop, hang it on the 1st needle, empty needle. 2nd loop, pick it, bottom loop, hang it on 2nd needle. The 3rd goes to the 3rd needle, and the 4th goes to the 4th needle. If you finish this, you see my stitch is dropped here. If you finished this, you can see now that our buttonhole is, you don't need to pick any loop for the 5th needle, So when you finish that, you can take off your ravel cord. It's easier when you take off your ravel cord now, But if you have a short one, you can. Why to take off my ravel cord now? Because it's difficult when you finish knitting. But if you don't trust if you want to check if you've done it properly, then leave your ravel cord in. Make sure you have short ravel cord. Alright, so I've pulled out my ravel cord. And now we need to knit the remaining 3 rows. You know, we knitted 3 before the buttonhole, we knitted 3 after for the front part. Now we are at the back part, we knitted 3 again, and we need to knit 3 to complete it, so that's 12. Knit another 3 rows to complete it. Our row counter shows 9 because we've knitted 3 before we started buttonholes. We knitted 3 after to complete the first part, and we knitted 3 again to do the back part of the buttonhole. And now we've picked our loop for the buttonhole to form it. We are knitting 3 to conclude the band. So we knit 1. Just going to pull it out so that I don't lose my stitches. 2 and 3. So we have we'll finish knitting welt, but then we need to secure it, so we'll have to pick. You can see the ravel cord here. This upper part is not the one we're picking. We need to pick the one under this seam here. Under this, you see the second one, this is the one we're going to pick. So let's start picking. And when you just bend your knit here, you will see it and you start picking those ones. And your ravel cord shows you where to pick. Sometimes I prefer omitting my ravel cord. I don't pick them with. It depends on. I don't usually pick them with the ravel cord, because if you pick it with the ravel cord, it's still difficult when you want to pull your ravel cord. You have to. If you are using your hand to pull out the ravel cord, you can hurt yourself. So I would advise that you be patient enough to just pick only the yarn and leave the ravel cord out. It's still hard when you pull without picking the ravel cord with it. When you want to pull the ravel cord out, you know you knitted it on every needle, so it's tight. So most time okay, let me pick this one here, then I'll do the other one off camera, please. Okay, you can see the mark here. You see why it's necessary for us to put the ravel cord, or you can, even if you don't have ravel cord, you can use a sewing thread. It's just to know the place to pick. You just know the row to pick, and the loop to pick too. So if you don't want to use ravel cord, you can use a sewing thread or in contrast color. Okay, now we finished picking our loops for the that's the side for the buttonhole. It's time for us to cast off. I'll push the first needle out. Let me bring the camera a bit closer so that we see what we're doing. Okay. I'll push the first needle out, wind the yarn around the hook of the first needle, manually knit the stitches on the first needle in, and if you notice, you will see, let's take a look, you see that we have 2 stitches on all needles. I just knitted this one in. We have 2 stitches. That's because we picked the loop. Okay, so now manually knit it in. Then we take both stitches from this second needle and transfer it onto the stitches in the first needle. That makes it 3 stitches in the first needle. We'll take them back to the second needle and take the first needle out of work position. Wrap the yarn around the hook or in the hook of this new first needle, which was previously our second needle. Then we manually knit it in. We continue casting off by moving our stitches to the first continue casting off until we are through. It's the same cast off method. I've not changed it. After this, we'll need to get our sewing machine. You need your sewing pins first, and then we'll pin the sleeves and the sides of the knitwear. Line it up properly. If you did stripes, then line it up properly. But if you didn't make stripes, you still need to line the gather part properly, the welt properly too. So you need your sewing pins, and then you need our sewing machine. So the next step will be sewing, and after that we'll be sewing our buttons, and I'll teach you how to hide your yarns. Then if you desire, you can go over your sewn stitches again with a zigzag or with your overlocker. That is, if you're happy with your sewn stitches, you can go over it with your overlocker to secure it more. Even if you don't use overlocker, the stitches will still hold. So we finished. This is the last one. And see our knitwear now. That's finally okay. Sorry. So you can see our knitwear now. That is done. You can see let's take a closer look at it. You can see the neckband and the buttonholes. So to make your buttonhole sturdy or alright, not too wonky, just place your transfer tool in the tube and try and close the stitches together. Do the same for the bottom part of it. If not, you have it wonky. Okay, here we go. You can see it now. And if you notice, you see the seam around. It has a kind of decorative edge to it. Like I told you, you can use a different color. Would have used yellow to just cast off. You can use a different color to cast off to give that decorative effect, or to enhance the decorative effect or the decorative seam. So now we're going to take off our ravel cord. Not the one we use for the buttonhole. You remember I removed that one first. The one we use to know where the loops. The one we use to knit the row we are going to pick is loops. So you have to be careful. It's really tight. If it don't come off now, it will come off later. So I hurt my fingers and it's going to be difficult for me pulling this. I've got a big cut there. So let me see if I can pull it. Okay. So I've done that. And just... Okay, now it's time for us to pick up. Pin our knitwear together. Since the buttonhole is going to be here, that means since the button is going to be here, the buttonhole has to be on top. I'll have to pin this together. Make sure you don't stretch them. Just pin it. So here's my pin. Sorry about all the yarn. We'll down those ones off. Okay, this is a loop from the other one. Alright, before we pin, sorry, I just discovered that there's a loop. When I remove the knitwear from the knitting machine, you know, this is the last loop. So I cut the yarn, just take yarn through it and pull it. This fastening, you can take it twice through it to fasten it. And then we'll place our buttonhole shoulder on the button shoulder part and pin it. After we finish sewing, we'll put in our buttons. Okay, so let me pin that. Just take a look. So we've pinned it. We're just going to stitch one small edge here, and we need our sleeves now. This is one of them. To pin your sleeves, first of all, fold it. Let the armhole, let it line up properly. We want it equal halves. So, and then take a pin. Okay, take a pin and just place it to mark the middle of the armhole of the sleeve. So we know that this is the middle now. And with right side facing right side, we're going to flip it together. That's put the right side facing right side together. And make sure this middle lines with the middle of this buttonhole here. Then you can pin it. I prefer not to remove the pin I used for the buttonhole now until I get to that spot. You know, sometimes the layer is too thick and your needles might want to misbehave. So what I'm doing next is to look for the armhole of the gown and the armhole of the sleeve and line it up properly, pin, arrange it neatly and pin because we are going to sew. If you notice, I'm not pinning vertically, I'm pinning horizontally. This is because I'm trying to stretch the not really stretch, I'm just trying to open the coil edges and it prevents me from using too much pins, because if I pin like so, you know, there's still going to be, this edge will still be coily, but if I try and straighten it, it will help me when I'm feeding my knitwear in the sewing machine. Okay, so I've lined this up properly and we pin. So the paw side is my wrong side. So pinning. I only do one side, then I'll do the others off camera, but I'm doing this side with the button because this is the one you really want to see. You can even see that since I'm pinning it, you can see, you notice that it's not rolling in that much. So when we stitch it, it will be fine. Some people do use hand to stitch, but I don't. I prefer the sewing machine doing its job. Can use an overlocker, but I prefer using the sewing machine in case I have any stitch I want, perhaps it didn't sew properly. I can use my unsew tool or seam ripper to remove the stitch, the sewn stitches, and then sew back. Then if you want to, after stitching, if you want to, you can go over it with a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine or an overlocker. So let's take a look at the sleeves. The sleeve that we've done is one, so the sleeve that I've done. And here it is, you see. We've pinned it out. We're going to sew that in the sewing machine, on the sewing machine. And then after that, we'll come back and we'll line this up properly and sew one side down. First of all, you need to sew your sleeves. So I'll pin this other part off camera. Just need to fold it. Right side facing you, fold it. Mark the middle of the sleeve. Then with that marked middle, you can see your middle here. You line it up with this other part that is properly stitched. If yes, that's on the other side of the shoulder. Just line it up properly. You pin this one vertically, and then you try and find your sleeve seam, the armhole of your sleeve, and you start pinning. Make sure it lines properly. In the 0 to 3 months old sweater we did this buttonhole shoulder opening. You notice that we did one part of the sweater in another Now we finish pinning the other side. So meet at the sewing machine and let's stitch it up. But before then, let's just take a look at it. It's nice seeing what you're doing in case you're following for the first time and you know you're doing it right. Okay, now you see we've pinned it out. You can see it. So you are going to stitch the sleeves first, then we'll come back and stitch the sides. We're stitching the upper part of the sleeve, the up arm hole, then we'll come back and stitch the sides. Threaded my sewing machine. You can see the thread in there, an aqua thread. And if you take a look at the stitch dial, let's take a look at stitch pattern. I'll be using stitch 5, which is a back stitch, and the tension I'll be using slightly, let me just say 1.5. Okay, just a standard tension. Then just the standard setting of the machine I'm using. You don't want your stitches to be too long, so it's good to use the standard stitch length for both the bottom and the top. It helps a lot. So now with my going to place it and then we'll sew. See if we can now. If you notice, I'm using a little of the hem in. Don't know if you can see that. I'm not using this side as this outer fit as my seam guide. I'm using the inner one. That's to give me a very slim, thin seam. I don't want the seam to be bulky. It's very uncomfortable when it's bulky. And since it's not a cut and sew method, just return the normal sewing procedure. You back stitch and you move back a little and forward before you start sewing, just to set your stitch or your sewing. finish stitching the sleeves now. You can see it. Let's go a bit closer. You can see that we've stitched them. If we take a look, you see no pins here. We've stitched them, and you can see that the seam is not that bulky. Alright, it's time for us to pin out the sides. So let's pin the sides. When pinning the sides, make sure you line it properly, especially if you did stripes. And also, first of all, it's very important to line the armhole properly. Do that first. After lining the armhole, then line this girder too. Then you can line the stripes. You repeat it for both sides of the gown, or the other side of the gown. Still repeat it on the other side. Make sure the stripes lines properly. Let's do the sleeves too. You know the welt, you line the welt properly too. Just line everything properly. Okay. And the next video we'll be doing ferrule. So get your punch card ready. Let's do that then. We'll do single motif. And we'll use our, is it magic camp? Magic camps also. Then we need teddy bears. We'll do different designs with it. Use those spacing. We'll do them close together. We'll do them in ferrule too. So just get your punch card ready in the next video. Might be knitting a hat, a beanie hat, and a gown. We only knit one part of the gown, one side of the gown. You know, I've taught you how to knit gowns. So we knit one side of the gown, and might be an A-line gown. Let me keep that a secret. I don't know yet. I don't want to give myself too much work. So, okay, that's perfect. So if you can see now, we've pinned this one. Let's take the camera out. Okay, we've pinned it. You can take a look here and make sure it lines properly before you sew. Just turn it a little bit in just check the right side to make sure it lines properly. Okay. And you need to do the same for the left side or the right side, depending on which side you did first. Make sure you line this underarm properly, seam to seam. Good. And you pin it. Start lining this one. Every other one can. Then you start doing the others. So I'll do the others off camera. And when we come back, we'll be sewing, we'll be darning and stitching our buttons. Then we'll come to the end of our knitwear. You can sew your labels, your clothing labels to it. You can attach your clothing labels. Make your printed tags. Make, sell, make money for yourself. To finish our garments, to darn some of the yarns. I've done some. I left this other side and I did most of these ones here. You can see how neat it is now. If you want to, you can go around later on with the zigzag of your knitting, the zigzag stitch of your knitting machine to secure it properly. But the back stitch holds it properly, and if you darn it neatly, you won't see the yarn. All right, let me teach you how to. I left some here so that I can teach you how to darn the yarn. Remember, with a very tiny hook, crochet hook, you put, I think this one is crochet hook 2 or so. We'll go in and out. You can use one, but let your crochet hook not be bigger than your knit or the stitch of your knitwear. Don't bore hole in it. So we just go zigzag in. We'll take the yarn, put around the hook of the crochet hook and pull it through. You can see that it's neatly woven in. We'll do the same, because of this one going here, we can turn it and weave it into the this other side. It all depends. You can see weave it into the front one too. It's optional. Then with your scissors, you trim the excess off. Okay, now let me do the white. With a crochet hook, I'm just going to zigzag with the crochet hook. I'm going to zigzag into the seam allowance, wind my yarn around the hook, the head of the crochet hook, and pull the loose yarn, or the yarn that I don't want to down in. Then you trim off the excess. You can see that one side is totally clean. You can even see that the welt is clean here, but I left the welt here so that I can teach you how to. But this other side, I'll do it off camera. So here we take the welt, we put the yarn, the crochet hook into the tube of the welt. We make sure our crochet hook is not appearing the front side. You don't want a loop here, so make sure it's not appearing. And you just pull your your yarn in. Be careful not to cut your knitwear. So you can see it's neat. So now we'll turn it in. We'll turn the knitwear the right side out. Knitwear now. So let's sew the buttons to the buttonhole shoulder opening. To sew our button or to stitch our button, we'll place, we've already stitched the opening. So what I normally do is that I place the button over I place it, if you have a timber, this is important, if you have a timber, but I don't know where mine is now. Okay, you see the opening here. You want it to fit properly, so put your button on top. Make sure it fits properly there. And with your tape string, your needle that can go through the eye of the button or the holes of the button, and yarn, coordinating yarn from the second part. We are stitching from the second part now into the first. You can see it out. It's not properly done. Okay, so I think it has got into one of the buttons. So what I do in this now, what I normally do is that, since you can see I don't know if you can get this one clearly. You can see now that I stitch from this one. You can see the needle from the under part, and through this buttonhole, the buttonhole in the knitwear, and then this button. Okay, so what I do next is to take this button off and take the buttonhole off. You have to be careful in this stage so that you don't prick your fingers or pierce your fingers. Okay, and then you place your button. With that, you stitch. So now your button will fit properly. Okay, you leave a short tail of yarn, not too long. Then you need to secure your button at the back. So what I normally do is that I now tie a knot to secure it properly and pass the yarn a second time for a firm knot. With my scissors, trim the excess, but not too close to it, because with my crochet hook, I'm going to insert it through the welts of the neckband and pull and hide this extra yarn. I'll trim the excess. Okay, let me remove this one. I'll do those ones later. So now you see that our button and you can see that it fits properly. So let me do this other one quickly. Remember, you place your button on top. You make sure the buttonhole, the knitted buttonhole, lines properly with the neckband where you want to sew your button to. And you just pass it through. When you check, you find out that the yarn, everything is perfect. You remove the buttons first. Then you remove and bring back your button. And you stitch it. Leave tail of yarn. Before you tie, you can just try if it fits properly. If you are in doubt that it's not properly done, you can still try it if it fits properly. And remember, the buttonhole, we can put our tapestry, I'll transfer tool through it and arrange the buttonhole properly. And when it relaxes, it will be fine. Okay, so let's pass the yarning second time to give it grip, to make the knot firm. And we need to hide the yarn of our buttonhole. So, this one too. Okay, now you see where we stitched our buttonhole? Sorry, we stitched our buttons. You see that it's neat. So, with my tapestry needle, my transfer tool again, I'm going to come in. You know, I fiddled with this buttonhole. So what you need to do now is just to put your transfer tool in the tube of the buttonhole and just pull it out a little to close the stitches. You know, when we are fixing, we might have tampered with it, so we need it to be straight and nicely done. Okay, let's take a closer look. Okay, so now you see that your buttonhole is nicely done. So yes, our finished knitwear. I'll put the pattern on my blog, AninoOgunjobi.com. You can go there and download it, make as many knitwear you want to make, sell them. Just don't sell the pattern so that others can benefit from it. Alright, in the next video we'll be knitting with the sponge card number 13, houndstooth. We'll be knitting ferrule, and then we'll knit single motif. After the ferrule would be the next video. After the ferrule we'll be knitting single motif with this teddy bear. Might be 1 or 2 repeats or 3 repeats, 1 teddy bear or 2 teddy bears together, or the teddy bear will be evenly spaced, and we'll be using our point cam. So until then, happy knitwear designing and have fun. Take care. Bye bye for now.